Annabelle. Before she was the porcelain demon haunting movie screens, Annabelle was a classic Raggedy Ann doll. Red yarn hair, button eyes, and allegedly, a serious case of possession. And I already see the comments pouring in. I do not claim this negative energy. Like Annabelle's gonna read that and go, oh, my bad, you're cool then. But trust me, this doll didn't care about your disclaimers back in 1970 when a nursing student named Donna got her as a birthday gift from her mom, which was sweet, until the doll started teleporting around the apartment and leaving creepy little notes that said, help me. Even worse, the notes were written on parchment paper, which no one in the apartment actually owned. Then it got physical. One friend claimed Annabelle gave him a death stare and left scratch marks on his body. Another time, her possessed ass allegedly started leaking blood. Naturally, instead of throwing it in a fire like sane people, they called a psychic. The verdict? The doll was inhabited by the spirit of a 7-year-old girl named Annabelle Higgins, who just wanted to be loved. That's when 2 self-declared paranormal investigators got involved. They were like, nah, that's not a little girl. It's a demon trying to jack your soul. They blessed the place, took the doll, and sprayed it with holy water like it was hand sanitizer. Until now, Annabelle sat locked in a glass box in the Warren family's private museum behind a giant "Do Not Open" sign. Guess what people did? They opened it. Duh. They recently took her on a road trip throughout the country, including a stop in Louisiana. Shortly after, the Nottoway plantation burned down. Coincidence? Who knows? Pluto. The Hills Have Eyes gave us a terrifying vision of what happens when a family road trip goes off course. Namely, you end up on the dinner menu of radioactive desert cannibals. I was going to tell a cannibal joke, but then I figured it would be bad taste. Anyways, believe it or not, the story of a hidden cannibal family wasn't totally fiction, which is hard to chew on, I know. The 1977 horror film wasn't just a product of twisted imagination. Pluto, the bald, pointy, egg-headed main antagonist, drew inspiration from the legend of Sawney Bean, a 16th century Scottish man who, along with his equally charming wife, allegedly led a 48-member clan of cannibals. This delightful group lived in a sea cave on Scotland's southwest coast, emerging at night to ambush travelers, rob them, and, well, serve them. As in, on a plate. The leftovers? Tossed into the ocean. Because recycling wasn't really a thing yet. The Bean Clan allegedly killed and ate over 1,000 people before being discovered. And the ending? Not exactly heartwarming. The clan was discovered and executed without trial. Because when you walk into a cave pantry full of people jerky, nobody's waiting on a warrant. Wes Craven, the director of The Hills Have Eyes, really ate with turning this tale into a modern nightmare. Instead of 1500 Scotland, it's the American Southwest. Instead of a cave, it's an abandoned nuclear test site. But the core remains the same. Isolated, inbred killers preying on unsuspecting travelers, and a story that definitely leaves a bad taste. The Strangers. In The Strangers, 2008, 3 masked intruders stalk and brutally attack a couple in their remote vacation home for no reason. No crazy backstory, no personal grudge, just pure randomness. When asked why they did it, one of them simply replies, because you were home. I mean, duh? People called it the most chilling use of casual honesty in horror history, while the only chills I got were from cringing. But unfortunately, the horror didn't come from nowhere. The film was loosely inspired by a mix of 2 real cases, the Manson family murders and the Keddie cabin killings. The Manson family, led by Charles Manson, famously murdered actress Sharon Tate and several others in 1969. The attack was gruesome, chaotic, and seemingly senseless. Much like The Strangers, it involved breaking into a home and killing whoever was there. No real motive, just a warped ideology and a terrifying sense of detachment. Strange, right? Then there's the Keddie cabin murders. In 1981, a mother, her son, and a family friend were found brutally murdered in a rural California cabin, with the kids tied up and the scene looking like something out of a slasher script. To this day, the case remains unsolved. So when you're watching The Strangers and thinking, no one would just do that for no reason. Yeah, people have. And that's exactly why it hits so hard. Yet another wake-up call on why you should take stranger danger seriously and never answer the door for a funky unknown person rocking a crusty potato sack as a mask. Judd. Before Florida Man memes, there was Judd. And I know he doesn't sound familiar, but trust me, you don't want to miss hearing about his real-life counterpart. In Eaten Alive, 1976, Tobe Hooper followed up the Texas Chainsaw Massacre with a movie about Judd, a one-legged motel owner in a swamp who kills his guests and feeds them to a crocodile. Seems like he misunderstood feed the guests in the most Florida way possible. Now, you'd assume this was pure horror movie nonsense, but Judd was loosely based on Joe Ball, a Texas bar owner from the 1930s who reportedly killed up to 20 women and used his personal alligator pit as a cleanup crew. Ball ran a tavern near San Antonio and had a habit of dating his waitresses, who then mysteriously disappeared. He misinterpreted the legal term corpus delicti, thinking if there's no body, there's no crime. So naturally, he built a gator pit behind the bar. Unfortunately for Joe, he wasn't great at finishing the job. When authorities finally showed up, they found the remains of 2 victims he hadn't fed to the reptiles yet. His story ended with a self-inflicted gunshot in front of law enforcement, because even his exit had to be dramatic. He really should have gone with "see you later, alligator," but who am I to tell, right? Tobe Hooper took that story, cranked the dial, and turned Joe Ball into Judd, a sweaty maniac with a wooden leg, a scythe, and a pet gator with a taste for tourists. Ghostface. Ghostface walked so all those masked, thirst-trap baddies on TikTok could run. You can thank him for every soft-spoken psycho in a balaclava lip-syncing The Weeknd while holding a fake knife. And while Gen Z might be simping hard, most of them have no idea Ghostface was based on a real-life killer. The character was loosely based on Danny Rolling, a.k.a. the Gainesville Ripper, a serial killer who terrorized the college town of Gainesville, Florida in 1990. Over 4 days, Rolling murdered 5 students, mutilating the bodies and even posing them afterwards. He broke into apartments, stalked his victims, and used knives, just like Ghostface. Except Rolling didn't wear a goofy mask or ask horror trivia. Rolling's backstory also echoes that of Scream's killers. He had a traumatic childhood, was obsessed with fame, and recorded creepy confessions where he talked about wanting to become a superstar. Guess he was screaming for attention, huh? And like in the film, his story involved a lot of misdirection. The police initially suspected someone else entirely before the real killer was caught. Of course, Scream added layers of humor, teenage angst, and a killer voice changer. But at its core, the idea of being hunted in your own home by someone who gets off on fear, that wasn't fiction. That was Gainesville in 1990. So the next time your phone rings and someone asks, "What's your favorite scary movie?" maybe just hang up. Unless it's Billy Loomis, am I right, ladies? Chucky. While Annabelle is at least somewhat creepy, the story of Chucky is just goofy. Like, what do you mean no one could fight off a toddler-sized plastic ankle biter with a knife? And now I have to tell you it's based on a real doll? Be for real. The doll in question is Robert the Doll, a 100-year-old sailor-suited menace currently locked in a glass case in Key West, Florida. In the early 1900s, a Bahamian servant allegedly gave Robert to a boy named Eugene Otto. And not long after, things got weird. Facial expressions changed. Giggles echoed at night. Furniture moved. Eugene blamed everything on Robert. Broken toys, strange noises, you name it. At first, people thought it was just a kid being weird. But over time, it started feeling like Robert wanted something. He started showing up in different rooms, seated in new positions, and staring with the kind of intensity only possessed toys and judgmental cats can manage. Eventually, the boy, and honestly the whole family, just had enough.
Yes, Robert, what do you want now? More money, a check, a car, my soul?
Fast forward, Eugene grew up, left Robert behind, and the doll gained a reputation. Museum visitors say they've heard footsteps, seen him blink, or had their electronics glitch around him. There's even a whole wall of apology letters from people who took his photo without asking and later blamed their car crashes and breakups on it. Anyways, while the creators of Child's Play never confirmed Robert as the direct inspiration, let's be real. A haunted doll wrecking your life from across the room? It feels a little too familiar. The Leprechaun, imagine this. You get a little drunk and decide to go home with the short baddie from the club. But instead of getting lucky, you get chased around the house by a 600-year-old tiny man with gold digger issues. Rough night. Anyways, in 1993, someone looked at Irish folklore and said, what if we made it tiny, violent, and weirdly obsessed with gold? The result? A killer leprechaun who'll snap your neck over loose change. He's got the possessiveness of Gollum, except instead of whispering, "my precious," he's stabbing people with pogo sticks while rhyming about it. What most people don't know is that this pint-sized psycho was loosely inspired by Irish legends and a supposedly cursed leprechaun statue. Museum staff swore it moved on its own, knocked stuff over, and basically made you regret ever believing in luck. Hollywood took the folklore, added some chaos, and turned it into a horror comedy fever dream. In the films, the leprechaun is not just protective of his gold. He's completely unhinged. He kills with pogo sticks, rides around on tricycles, and delivers death threats in limericks. And somehow, this guy got 8 movies. He's been to Vegas, space, and the Hood twice. The sequel was literally called Back to the Hood. Peak cinema. Honestly, we need to see a toddler-sized brawl between this guy and Chucky. Who wins, the doll with the knife or the goblin with the bars and a pogo stick? Vegas odds would be wild. Bottom line, if you hear a jingle and a limerick in the dark, don't follow the rainbow. It's not treasure. It's just this little maniac waiting to completely ruin your day. Buffalo Bill. In Silence of the Lambs, the villain is named Buffalo Bill, and yet at no point does he herd cattle or headline a Wild West show. Instead, he's too busy kidnapping women to make himself a suit out of skin. Buffalo Bill, aka James Gum, is a tailor/serial killer who thinks the fastest way to become a woman is to DIY one out of other people. He kidnaps overweight women, keeps them in a pit, starves them, and then skins them to sew his very own woman suit. But here's the disturbing part. He wasn't just a product of fiction. Bill was loosely based on Ed Gein, a real-life killer whose idea of interior design was unsettling. His renovations included lampshades made of human skin, bowls carved from skulls, and a belt stitched together from nipples. He even sewed a full-body suit from women's skin because he wanted to become his dead mother. Suddenly, Buffalo Bill's fashion choices don't seem so original, but Ed Gein wasn't the only inspiration for this character. Bill is also a mashup of other serial killers. Ted Bundy, who lured victims with a fake injury, Gary Heidnik, who kept women trapped in a basement pit, and Jerry Brudos, who had a thing for women's shoes and corpses. So if Buffalo Bill feels unsettlingly real, it's because he kind of is. He doesn't just make your skin crawl. He wants to try it on. So yeah, next time you watch a horror movie and think, well, at least it's just fiction, maybe double check. And hey, if you made it this far without getting possessed or fed to a gator, you should subscribe to my channel.